Hello everybody and welcome. Today we're going to be discussing Erling Haaland's 9-year contract at Manchester City that was announced this morning. If you do enjoy, please as always be sure to like and subscribe. Apologies if you can see my dog in the background, she's just chilling and vibing. Within the contract, it stated that Erling Haaland does not have a release clause until 2029. This is positive for Man City because it means they have control of the player for a substantial period of time. We don't know what the release clause is that's been inserted until 2029, but by then Erling Haaland may decide that he wants to move on either way. So it is a show of faith in the striker, certainly, and positive for Man City locking down one of the best strikers in world football. A question that not many people have been talking about, something that I wanted to ask you guys is this a risk for Erling Haaland? Because City potentially have a substantial amount of charges on their way to be presented to them by the Premier League. Whether they agree with them or not, there's going to be a decision, and it's likely going to have some form of punishment for Manchester City. That punishment might even mean that they're expelled from the Premier League for a season, or they get a points deduction, or maybe they're expelled from the Premier League, but then the EFL don't want them and the National League don't accept them. So City just can't play football games for like a year. So with that, a potential future for Manchester City, is it a risk for Haaland signing this contract? You'd imagine his agent has probably got some form of knowledge of the situation of the charges, and you would also imagine that that would mean that City are likely not to get a relegation punishment. They might just get a substantial fine or a few transfer embargoes. But it is a wider question. Is this a risk for Erling Haaland's future endeavours? Now, the second part is it a risk for Man City? If Haaland was to get a devastating injury that meant that he was nowhere near as effective physically, because he is a physical monster, then obviously City would be paying 500k a week for a much less quality player that could be, that's a substantial outlay for a player who may drop in value, in ability. But I can't see that happening. I think that, to be fair, it is a pretty good overall deal for both parties. It means that Real Madrid will not be coming in for Man City, but for Erling Haaland in the short-term future. But equally, if the player was to want to cut ties with the team, then you'd imagine there's more incentive for the player now to rescind that contract on the basis that Man City otherwise would force him to stay. So Man City actually have more of the power than the player here. The only time that the player would get more power in this scenario with this contract is if the player wanted to stay and Man City tried to force him out. Maybe they get a Liam Delap through the academy or someone again, and this time they want to hedge their bets on that. So, it's a risk, yes, to an extent, but only to an extent. It is Erling Haaland we're talking about. So you'd imagine with a 9-year deal, if he stays in the league for those seasons, he's probably going to surpass Alan Shearer's record as the Premier League top scorer. So that's probably what it means. It's probably something that he is looking at as a target in his career. My only other question is motivation for the player. He's never going to be playing for a new contract now. Not that he would anyway, but he has to be consistently motivated over a 9-year period. That could get a bit boring. You talk of players getting bored of the same thing over and over again. He might need a change of scenery. So we'll wait and see how it pans out. But overall, I think the reaction is pretty positive. I do think that it probably means that Man City are probably facing a few transfer embargoes. Having signed Erling Haaland down for 10 years, having been so active in this current window at the moment, it does seem like there's going to be some form of transfer embargo placed upon them in the coming year. I know it's obviously March, isn't it, that the hearing is apparently going to come to fruition with us getting some form of answer regarding that. So we'll wait and see. Another query I have, and I'm not a legal expert, so I don't necessarily know the answers to this, but if Man City are found guilty and relegated to a different league, could Haaland get out of the contract because he signed for it on the basis that they were a Premier League club for the foreseeable, and due to the club's running, they have been demoted? Would that be an argument for Haaland to say that the club have put him in a position of disrepute because his brand is damaged because he's associated with Manchester City Football Club? Is that something that could be done? Let me know in the comments below. But overall, 9 years is great for City. They're sort of following the mould that Chelsea employed earlier in this summer and last summer. Chelsea obviously gave Cole Palmer a near enough 8-year deal, I think it was in the end. And it was frowned upon by the FA, I know that, and they looked into trying to ban that, but they clearly haven't been able to. But what does that mean for football in the future? Are more teams going to start adopting this 9-year policy? Only time will tell. I think that it is an interesting one for fans especially, because this is the best striker in the Premier League over the last 2 and a bit seasons or whatever he's been here. And City have secured him for longer. So it's good for the Premier League brand, but is it good for the competitiveness of the league? If City get all their ducks in a row, you'd imagine they're going to from January, going into next season, they'll get Rodri back, etc. Does it just mean that they're going to be even more unstoppable than they previously were? I think only the charges now can really stop them, and even that won't relegate them, I don't think, because the EFL would have to accept them into the league, and it would maybe damage the EFL's competition because City would just run away with the Championship or League Two or wherever you play City. So we'll wait and see. But I hope you have enjoyed. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you have. And I'll see you next time with an Arsenal-related video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.